Hello learners, this is Habeeba with Excel with me. If you like the video, please do like, share, subscribe and comment below. Let's start today's class, that is CTET Central Teacher Eligibility Test Paper 2 Social Science Class 6, our Past 1 History from NCERT, the last chapter of this part, that is 11th chapter, Buildings, Paintings and Books, What, Where and How, When. Let's start with the practice questions. According to archaeological excavations, who were master craftsmen and had knowledge of copper metallurgy? They were Harappans. Now let's see the statements. The Harappans belong to the Bronze Age. Their successors belong to the Iron Age. Yes, both the statements are true. Now, where is the Iron Pillar, which is a remarkable example of the skill of Indian craftspersons, located? That was Mehrauli, Delhi. Now, the iron pillar at Mehrauli, Delhi, related to that statements, very important statements here. Let's see. It is made of iron, 7.2 meter high and weighs over 3 tons. It was made about 1500 years ago. We know the date because there is an inscription on the pillar mentioning a ruler named Chandra who probably belonged to the Gupta dynasty. Now, amazing fact that the pillar has not rusted in all these years. All the 4 statements are true. The word stupa means, that is, a mound. There are several kinds of stupas, round and tall, big and small. These have certain common features. They can come as the statements. Let's see all the points here. Generally, there is a small box placed at the center of or heart of the stupa. This may contain bodily remains such as teeth, bone or ashes of the Buddha or his followers, or things they used, as well as precious stones and coins. This box, known as a relic casket, was covered with earth. Now later a layer of mud brick or baked brick was added on top, and then the dome-like structure was sometimes covered with carved stone slabs. So these are all very important points related to stupas. Now what was laid around the stupa? That was a path known as the Pradakshina Patha. Now what was a place where a magnificent stupa once existed, and many of the stone carvings for decorating the stupa were made about 2000 years ago. That was Amaravati. Now the great stupa at Sanchi, Madhya Pradesh, also very important. Now, some of the earliest Hindu temples were also built at this time. Deities such as Vishnu, Shiva and Durga were worshipped in these shrines. Both the statements are true. What was the most important part of the temple room known as where the image of the chief deity was placed? That was the Garbhagriha. Where was the priest performed religious rituals and devotees offered worship to the deity? That was again the Garbhagriha. Now, an early temple at Bhitargaon, Uttar Pradesh. This was built about 1500 years ago and was made of baked brick and stone. You can see the picture over here. Now, monolithic temples at Mahabalipuram, very important site. Each of these was carved out of a huge single piece of stone. That is why they are known as monoliths. Now, the Durga Temple at Aihole, built about 1400 years ago. Where was a tower known as the Shikhara, was built on top of the Garbhagriha to mark this out as a sacred place. That was Bhitargaon. Some of the finest stone temples were built in these towns. They were Mahabalipuram and Aihole. Now, let's see the statements related to Shikharas. Building shikharas required careful planning. Most temples also had a space known as the mandapa. It was a hall where people could assemble. So these are the statements we have to remember related to shikharas. Now, a Jain monastery from Odisha, this 2-story building was carved out of the rock surface. Jaina monks lived and meditated in these rooms. The colors, which are vivid even after 1500 years, were made of plants and minerals. This is a place where several caves were hollowed out of the hills over centuries. Most of these were monasteries for Buddhist monks, and some of them were decorated with paintings. Very, very important place, that is Ajanta. Name a famous Tamil epic which was composed by a poet named Ilango around 1800 years ago. That was the Silappadhikaram. Let's understand the story behind it. It is the story of a merchant named Kovalan who lived in Puhar and fell in love with a courtesan named Madhavi, neglecting his wife Kannagi. Later, he and Kannagi left Puhar and went to Madurai, where he was wrongly accused of theft by the court jeweler of the Pandya king. The king sentenced Kovalan to death. Kannagi, who still loved him, was full of grief and anger at this injustice and destroyed the entire city of Madurai. So, this is related to the epic, Tamil epic, the Silappadhikaram. Name the Tamil epic composed by Sattanar around 1400 years ago, that was the Manimekhalai. This describes the story of the daughter of Kovalan and Madhavi. These beautiful compositions were lost to scholars for many centuries till their manuscripts were rediscovered about 100 years ago. Name Kalidasa's best known poem, that is the Meghaduta, that was written in Sanskrit, in which a monsoon cloud is imagined to be a messenger between lovers who are separated from one another. Now let's see the statements related to the Puranas. Purana literally mean old. The Puranas contain stories about gods and goddesses such as Vishnu, Shiva, Durga or Parvati. Now they also contain details on how they were to be worshipped. Besides, there are accounts about the creation of the world and about kings. Now more statements related to the Puranas. The Purana were written in simple Sanskrit words and were meant to be heard by everybody, including women and Shudras who were not allowed to study the Vedas. They were probably recited in temples by priests and people came to listen to them. Now what are the two Sanskrit epics popular for a very long time? The Mahabharata and the Ramayana. What is about a war fought between the Kauravas and Pandavas who were cousins? That was the Mahabharata. Both the Puranas and the Mahabharata are supposed to have been compiled by Vyasa. What was also included in the Mahabharata? That was the Bhagavad Gita. Who is recognized as the author of the Sanskrit Ramayana? Valmiki. Ordinary people also told stories, composed poems and songs, sang, danced and performed plays. Some of these are preserved in collection of stories such as the Jatakas and the Panchatantra, very popular. Stories from the Jatakas were often shown on the railings of stupas and in paintings in places such as Ajanta. Now name a mathematician and astronomer wrote a book in Sanskrit known as the Aryabhattiyam. That was Aryabhatta. Now Varahamihira, Brahmagupta and Bhaskaracharya were some other mathematicians and astronomers who made several discoveries. Now let's see the statements related to Aryabhatta. He stated that day and night were caused by the rotation of the earth on its axis, even though it seems as if the sun is rising and setting every day. He developed a scientific explanation for eclipses as well. He also found a way of calculating the circumference of a circle which is nearly as accurate as the formula we use today. Now let's see more statements here. While numerals had been used earlier, mathematicians in India now invented a special symbol for zero. This system of counting was adapted by the Arabs and then spread to Europe. It continues to be in use throughout the world. Now, what is a well-known system of health science that was developed in ancient India? That was Ayurveda. Who were the two famous practitioners of Ayurveda in ancient India? Charaka, 1st to 2nd centuries CE, Common Era, and Shushruta, that is c. 4th century Common Era. What was written by Charka is a remarkable book on medicine, that was Charak Samhita, in which treatise Sushruta speaks about elaborate surgical procedures, that was the Sushruta Samhita. Now let's see the end of the chapter with elsewhere. Paper was invented in China about 1900 years ago by a man named Kai Lung. He beat plant fibers, cloth, rope and the bark of trees, soaked these in water and then pressed, drained and dried the pulp to create paper. Even today, handmade paper is made through a similar process. Now, the technique of making paper was a closely guarded secret for centuries. It reached Korea about 1400 years ago and spread to Japan soon after. It was known in Baghdad about 1800 years ago. From Baghdad, it spread to Europe, Africa and other parts of Asia, including the subcontinent. So we come to the end of this chapter, and also we have concluded all the chapters, 11 chapters of History, Our Past 1 NCERT class 6. I will start with geography in the next class. If you like the questions, please do like, share, subscribe and comment below. And I will have one grand test of all these chapters coming soon. Till then, thanks for your attention and time. Happy learning.